I didn't know that I was getting bad sleep until I got better sleep.
So you woke up and you were probably not really refreshed.
I just thought that it was normal to walk around groggy. It was always, oh, my dad and my grandpa have it. My friends, even if they'd make fun of me, I'd be like, no, dude, I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. No, it's cool to be healthy. That's attractive as a man, to be healthy.
Welcome to In Bed With. I'm Dr. Cheri Mah, a sleep physician and performance specialist. I work with elite athletes and high performers to help them optimize their sleep and maximize performance. Today, I'm so thrilled to be joined by Pete Lee. So Pete, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a stand-up comedian, high-performing one, so you can really help me, and I'm excited to talk to you. And I was diagnosed with sleep apnea in 2009, and I am so grateful for my machine.
Wonderful. We'll dive into that a bit. But first, I want to ask you, how did you sleep last night?
I slept incredible. I got the best night's sleep, which sleep is my favorite thing.
I love hearing that you're sleeping better because it sounds like that may not have always been the case.
No.
So I'd love to hear, how did your journey start?
I didn't know any better. I was 31 years old. I was in the best shape of my life. I had just run the New York City Marathon. So imagine this is 17 years ago. And I didn't know that I was getting almost no sleep until I got better sleep.
It wasn't until you kind of felt what good quality rest is for maybe one of the first times in many years that you recognize that your sleep previous wasn't what it should be. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I just thought that it was normal to walk around groggy, and I thought that was my personality, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not a morning person.
So you woke up and you were probably not really refreshed, and you said you were kind of sluggish in the morning time, and that became like your norm. But
Yeah.
it really shouldn't be, is really the reality of so many of us get used to feeling like a walking zombie through the day. I want to go back to kind of the beginning. So tell me, what was happening to lead you to actually get tested for sleep apnea?
So I just run the New York City Marathon, and I was having heart pains and a lot of irregular heartbeats, and I went and I got measured for it, and it turns out when you don't have oxygen at night, your heart doesn't beat correctly, and they thought that I may need a pacemaker, and it turns out I needed a CPAP machine, and I just needed oxygen while I sleep.
So it sounded like you were able to get tested for it. They showed that your oxygen definitely dipped throughout the nighttime, and you came out with a diagnosis that you were having these partial or full collapses at nighttime.
I have the throat collapse kind. I don't know what that's called.
Apneas, yeah. So
Apneas.
apneas are this like partial, those are hypopneas, or apneas are a much more robust collapse of that airway, and that can happen for individuals a couple of times through the night to hundreds of times at night. And so that determines the severity of apnea, where it could be mild or moderate or severe cases of apnea. So I'm glad you were able to get tested and start to get managed at an earlier point in your life than waiting much later.
Yeah, I wish that I would have been tested even 10 years before that. I remember running cross country in high school, and it was, I think I needed one a long time before that. And
the reality is when you talk about high school is sometimes when particularly men go through puberty, that's when some of the snoring becomes more robust, and that's when it becomes more obvious that they may have symptoms of sleep apnea. And so puberty in high school sometimes tends to be that tipping point where we would love to have more that have some concerns around their sleep to get tested earlier and not wait for sometimes years.
It's like you've been reading my diary. I snored so badly that I was like, oh, I got the bedroom in the basement. And I thought it was because I was cool and I was growing up, but it turns out I snored so bad that my mom was like, yeah, you should go down there.
You need to be down there to let everyone else in the household sleep.
Yeah, so there were signs all along.
I want to hear, so once you got diagnosed with sleep apnea, like how did you feel about that diagnosis?
One thing that I really want to do is help improve the stigma of sleep apnea, and I felt ashamed by it. I was 31 years old, and at that time in 2009, I didn't know anyone else that had it that was my age. It was always, oh, my dad and my grandpa have it. Truck drivers had to get tested for it to drive through Wisconsin. And so I felt pretty weird about it. I'm a comedian. My whole life is taking things that are hard and kind of judo flipping them into things that are positive. And so I started joking around about it, and my friends, even if they'd make fun of me, I'd be like, no, dude, I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. that's cool. You know, my wife at the time, she was like, no, it's cool to be healthy. Like, that's attractive as a man to be healthy. So luckily I had someone in my life that was telling me that it was a good thing, and I went from feeling shame about it to refusing to feel shame about it.
I love that. But you know, sleep apnea is just so common in our general public. Estimates around 26% in individuals 30 to 70. So, you know, when you were diagnosed, you were 31. Is that what you said?
I was 31.
You're right in that bucket there where it is common, and you can be young and healthy and fit and still be at risk for sleep apnea. But I love that you said that there's someone who kind of helped champion that this is a great way to address your health and making sure that you're going to be the best and healthiest, happiest version of yourself.
You hear a lot of wives go, my husband, he hasn't gone to the doctor in 10 years. And that's unattractive. And I think some guys think that that's manly to be like, I don't need a doctor. And I actually think that it's attractive to go. I mean, I don't know, women are attracted to men with shredded bodies. You probably are attracted to a guy that has oxygen when he sleeps.
It's probably good to make sure that you're getting the healthiest sleep possible and making sure that, yeah, you're ready to go and you can have a productive and efficient, healthy day for sure.
Yeah, and then I didn't snore anymore, so she got better sleep.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, sometimes you are getting the benefit of both yourself, of course, and then also your bed partner. I want to hear a little bit more about, you know, so you got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and then were you started on CPAP initially, or was there another discussion around other management options?
Well, to start, they gave me an at-home sleep test, and I had so many, hundreds of apneas that they were like, the machine failed. And so I had to go in and do an in-lab study.
Where you stayed overnight and you had lots of electrodes on you and sensors.
Then at one point they came in and they put the machine on you. So
The CPAP machine.
The CPAP machine. So that was my first experience, was in a lab. And I remember when they woke me up, I went, no way that's been this long. I felt like I time traveled. Yeah, that was my first experience. And so I slept so well I didn't believe it.
Well, I love that you had a good experience kind of starting into that CPAP journey. And for some, it's a struggle. It takes time to acclimate to using CPAP and kind of adjust, tweak some of the settings with their sleep physician and find the right mask that really fits them. So I'm curious, do you have advice if someone is struggling with trying to get used to CPAP?
I can only speak to this. Sleeping with the pressure and the hose and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't a problem for me, but I had to go through a lot of different masks to find exactly the right one. And I always tell people, don't be bashful to go try to find a different mask, because when I left, they're like, you're probably a large. Turns out I'm a small. And just this part of my face is small.
Yes.
And it turns out that a memory foam mask is the best for
your fit.
for my fit and the facial hair. And so it took me a while to dial it in. And it also took me probably a month to just get generally comfortable sleeping with it.
Yeah.
I used to call it jellyfish, because I'd wake up in the middle of the night and there's this clear thing on my face and I go, jellyfish, and I'd take it off. And so it took me about a month to not go jellyfish.
No, I mean, that's actually, for some, that can actually be quick. Sometimes it takes a couple of months for individuals to get used to it, or like I said, find the right mask. So I want to ask you, Pete, is there any misconception about using CPAP or being a CPAP user that you would like to correct?
Yeah, it's not just for your dad and your grandpa. But also imagine that, my brothers also had similar symptoms that I had. And now both my brothers and my dad have machines. And my dad's doing way better.
Yeah, you really identified it. So sleep apnea can run in families because part of it is a mechanical and anatomic issue with your breathing at nighttime that can be driven in part by genetics. So when you see sleep apnea in one individual, sometimes that can lead to being at least suspicious that if others in the family snore, are not getting quality sleep, that it might be a reason to suggest getting tested as well.
Yeah, and when something helps you that much, I don't know how to say it, like you become such an advocate for it that you almost feel like you joined a cult and you want to tell everybody about the cult. And
tell me more about the cult. So
yeah.
How did you feel now once you started using it for, like you said, after a month you got used to using CPAP? What did that feel like?
Well, I felt so great and so refreshed, and My personality went from like don't talk to me till I have my coffee to
Yeah.
hey, let's go grab breakfast, and I felt refreshed and awesome. And then, you know, a lot of times when you tell people that you're a stand-up comedian, they go, "Is that nerve-wracking? Do you get nervous?" I really had terrible stage fright, and I didn't realize that part of it was that I didn't have the emotional strength to not be nervous when I went on stage because I didn't have good sleep. My brain wasn't refreshed. Like we talked about the low oxygen. And so imagine even going on stage, I was doing my job, I was doing it better, going, wait, why is this? And I'm like, oh, because it turns out sleep makes you feel better. And when you get good sleep, you have less anxiety.
Yeah.
So it made me feel like at my job, I really had superpowers. And I would actually say that the success in my career really correlates to that time period.
Fascinating.
And yeah, I really did attribute it to like everything changed.
Got it. Now, does your CPAP have a name? And if not, can we name it here today?
All right, this is literally my CPAP, and I am now going to name it Dr. Cheri Mah. I named it after you.
All right, I'm helping you get the best sleep possible. I love it.
It's like a library at a college. It's named after you.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Now, if your CPAP could talk, what would it say to you?
Pete, brush your teeth before bed. You breathe into me. That was fun.